I was scrolling through my phone on a Tuesday night when I saw it. The post had already gone viral, thousands of likes climbing by the second. My ex-wife's face smiled back at me from the screen, professionally lit, confident, untouchable. "I built my fortune from nothing," the caption read. "No handouts, no help, just me, my vision, and relentless work. If I can do it, so can you." The comments flooded in. Inspiring queen, self-made icon. My hand started shaking. The phone felt heavy, like it was made of something denser than glass and metal. I read the post again, slower this time, letting each word sink in. Nothing, no help, just me. I set the phone face down on the kitchen table, but I could still feel it there, buzzing with notifications, people celebrating a lie I had paid for. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I stood up, paced to the window, then back to the table. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped wire around my ribs. She erased me. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that post, those words, that smile. By 3 in the morning, I was sitting at my laptop, staring at old bank statements I'd kept buried in a folder marked archive. The numbers told a different story than the one she was selling online. Transfer to Vivian Hayes, $85,000. Date, April 2019. Transfer to Vivian Hayes, $40,000. Date, June 2019. Transfer to Vivian Hayes, $120,000. Date, September 2019. Every cent came from the sale of my father's land, the inheritance he left me before he died. The land where I learned to ride a bike, where we planted trees every spring, where he told me to use the money wisely. I used it on her. My throat felt dry. I clicked through more files, finding the loan documents, the cosign papers, the receipts for equipment she needed to start the company. All of it traced back to my account, my name, my signature. She didn't build it from nothing. She built it from everything I gave her. The memory came back sharp, like walking into a room I'd locked years ago. We were sitting in our old apartment, the one with the broken heater and the landlord who never fixed anything. Vivian had been crying for an hour, mascara streaked down her face. "Babe, I know this business will work," she said, her voice breaking. "I just need a little financial support to get started. I believe in us. I believe we can build something together." Her mother, Patricia, sat across from us, arms folded, expression hard. She always looked at me like I was a problem she was waiting to solve. "Real men invest in their wives," Patricia said, her voice calm but cutting. "If you love her, you'll prove it." I remember how small I felt in that moment, like I was being tested and didn't know the right answer. So I nodded. I said yes. I transferred the money the next morning. I trusted them. Now, sitting in the dark, I opened my email and searched for the original transfer receipts. Every single payment was documented. Every dollar had my name on it. The subject lines were still there, notes I'd written to myself. Startup costs for V, business investment, equipment fund. I printed them all, watching the pages stack up on my desk, proof building line by line. The divorce happened so fast I barely had time to process it. 1 month, Vivian was talking about our future. The next, she was handing me papers through a lawyer, her face blank, like I was a stranger she was tired of knowing. "You lack ambition," she said the last time we spoke in person. "I need someone who matches my energy." Her mother stood behind her, arms crossed, nodding like a judge delivering a verdict. I remember walking out of the lawyer's office with nothing. No company stake, no acknowledgement, no money. Just a manila envelope with separation terms I barely read because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night I went through old files trying to understand what I'd signed. The prenuptial agreement was still in my drawer, yellowed and folded. I opened it slowly, scanning the clauses I'd barely looked at the first time. My stomach dropped. The document was dated the week of my father's funeral. I remembered signing it in a fog, grief pressing down on me so hard I could barely stand. Vivian had placed the papers in front of me, her hand on my shoulder, her voice soft. "Just a formality, babe. It protects us both." I'd signed without reading, and somewhere in those pages, my ownership rights had disappeared. The divorce hearing was worse than the separation itself. I sat alone at a table while Vivian's lawyer stood up, tall and confident, and painted me as someone I didn't recognize. "Mr. Hayes was emotionally unstable throughout the marriage," the lawyer said, flipping through notes like they were reading a script. "He contributed nothing of value to the business. His claims of financial support are exaggerated and unsupported." I tried to speak, but my voice came out weak, unconvincing. The judge barely looked at me. Across the room, Patricia sat behind Vivian, her face calm, almost smug. She leaned forward once and whispered something into Vivian's ear. Vivian nodded, her expression cold. I walked out of that courtroom numb, my hands shoved deep in my pockets, the taste of failure thick in my mouth. But I kept one thing. Before I moved out of our shared apartment, I grabbed an old external hard drive from the back of a drawer. It was dusty, forgotten, labeled in my handwriting. Backup files 2018-2019. I didn't know why I took it. Maybe instinct, maybe spite. But I carried it with me to my new place and shoved it in a box under my bed. I didn't plug it in until the night I saw her post. The hard drive took a moment to load, the old files flickering onto the screen like ghosts waking up. I clicked through folders slowly, my heart pounding harder with each one. Then I found it. Folder name, Startup Plans Me plus V. I opened it, and the first document that appeared was a business plan. 30 pages, professionally formatted, full of projections, market research, and strategy. My name was on the first page, author me, co-founder Vivian Hayes. I scrolled through the document, my chest tightening with every line. I wrote this. I remembered staying up late, researching competitors, drafting pitches, revising sections while Vivian slept. She'd review it in the morning, suggest changes, and I'd rewrite it. But my name was on every page. I kept clicking. More files appeared. Budget spreadsheets with my calculations, investor pitch decks with my notes in the margins, email drafts where I introduced the company to potential clients. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger yet, but something colder, sharper. She didn't just take my money. She took my work and called it hers. The realization came in pieces, each one landing heavier than the last. I spent the next 2 hours going through every file on that hard drive, building a timeline in my notebook. April 2019, I funded the company with my inheritance. May 2019, I wrote the business plan. June 2019, I helped pitch to investors. August 2019, I designed the first marketing strategy. And then 2 months before the divorce, everything changed. My name started disappearing from documents. Emails stopped including me. Meetings happened without me knowing. By the time she filed for divorce, I was already erased. I opened a browser and searched for the company's legal registration. Public records showed the business filings, and I scrolled back to the earliest ones. Original filing, April 2019. Co-owners listed as me and Vivian Hayes. Amended filing, November 2019. Owner listed as Vivian Hayes only. The change happened 1 week before she handed me divorce papers. I sat back, staring at the dates, feeling my pulse in my temples. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. The next document I found made everything worse. It was buried deep in a subfolder labeled Legal Archive. A PDF titled Partnership Dissolution Agreement. I opened it, and my signature was at the bottom, scrawled in blue ink. I stared at it for a long time, my mind racing, trying to remember when I signed this. But the memory wouldn't come because it didn't exist. I never signed this document. The date on the file was October 2019, right before my name disappeared from the business. The agreement stated that I was voluntarily removing myself as co-owner, relinquishing all rights, and acknowledging I contributed no financial or intellectual capital. My hands were shaking again. I zoomed in on the signature. It looked like mine, but something was off. The loops were too smooth, the pressure too even. I grabbed an old notebook where I'd signed receipts and compared the handwriting. Mine was messier, more rushed. This signature was perfect, almost robotic. I took a photo of both and sent them to my friend Keith, a lawyer who owed me a favor. His reply came 10 minutes later. This is very possibly fraud. Don't delete anything. I couldn't stop now. I kept digging, searching for anyone who might remember the truth. The company's first accountant was listed in an old email chain, a woman named Monica Reeves. I found her contact info on a professional directory and sent a careful message. Hi Monica, I'm following up on some financial records from 2019. Do you have a moment to talk? She replied the next morning, her tone cautious. I remember you. What's this about? We arranged a phone call. When she answered, her voice was quiet, hesitant. I always wondered why your name disappeared, she said after I explained. You were listed as 50% owner on every tax form I filed that first year. My chest tightened. Do you still have those records? There was a pause, then softly, I kept copies of everything, it's just how I work. 20 minutes later, my inbox pinged. Monica had sent scanned tax documents from 2019, showing me as co-owner, my social security number linked to the business, my income reported as partnership earnings. I printed every page, hands trembling, the stack of evidence growing taller. The worst discovery came late that night. I found a folder labeled Private, Do Not Open, buried in Vivian's old cloud account that we used to share before the divorce. I hesitated, my cursor hovering over it, then I clicked. Inside were emails between Vivian and her mother, Patricia. The subject line of the first one read, Removing him. I opened it, my stomach turning. Patricia, you need to remove his name before he realizes what he's sitting on. Do it quietly. He's too blind to notice. Vivian, I'll handle it. He trusts me. Patricia, good. Make sure the lawyer drafts it to look voluntary. He won't read the fine print. Vivian, he won't. He never does. I read the exchange 3 times, each word burning deeper. They planned this. They discussed it like I was an obstacle, something to be removed and forgotten. I sat back staring at the ceiling, feeling something crack open inside me. Not sadness, not shock, just rage, cold and focused. I forwarded the emails to myself, then to Keith with a single message. Is this enough? His reply came fast. This is more than enough. We need to talk. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drafted an email to Vivian, my fingers moving slowly, deliberately, choosing every word with care. Subject, we need to talk. Vivian, I know what you did. I have the documents, the emails, the proof. We need to talk about this privately before it goes further. I read it 5 times before hitting send. My heart pounded as the message left my outbox, the little whoosh sound echoing in the quiet apartment. Her reply came within minutes. Do not contact me again. You contributed nothing to that business. This is harassment. My lawyer will hear about this. I stared at the message, feeling something settle inside me. That lie, that blatant, confident lie, unlocked the last piece of hesitation I had left. I forwarded her response to Keith with a single line, Let's move forward. His reply was immediate, I'll start the paperwork tomorrow. Keith worked fast. Within 3 days he had compiled everything. The bank transfers, the original ownership documents, the emails, the forged signature, the tax records from Monica. We met at his office, a small room with gray walls and a desk covered in folders. He spread the documents out in front of me, tapping each one with his pen. "This is textbook fraud," he said, his voice calm but serious. "Signature forgery, illegal removal of a partner, financial theft. If this goes to court, you have a very strong case." I looked down at the papers, my chest tight. What am I entitled to? Keith leaned back, folding his arms. "If the judge rules in your favor, you could own half the company, maybe more depending on how damages are calculated." The room went quiet. I heard the clock on the wall ticking, each second stretching out. "Do it," I said. "File everything." Keith nodded once, pulling the papers back together. "I'll have the complaint ready by end of week." I walked out of his office feeling lighter than I had in years. 2 days later, a message appeared in my LinkedIn inbox. The sender's name was unfamiliar. Theo Caldwell, former operations lead. I opened it cautiously. "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I worked at the company in the early days. I remember you. Everyone knew you funded everything. If you ever need someone to confirm that, I'm willing to talk." My hands went still. I typed back immediately, "Yes, I need your help." Theo sent me internal memos, saved emails, and budget reports that referenced initial capital provided by co-founder. Every document supported what I already knew, but now I had a witness. Someone who saw it happen from the inside. I forwarded everything to Keith. His response was 2 words: "This is gold." The formal legal notice was delivered on a Thursday morning. Keith sent it by certified mail, requiring a signature. I imagined Vivian opening the envelope, reading the words, feeling her confidence crack. Within an hour, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop this now or you'll regret it. You have no idea what you're doing." I recognized the tone immediately. Patricia. I screenshot the message and sent it to Keith without replying. His response came fast. "Do not engage. This is evidence of intimidation." But Patricia wasn't done. Another message arrived. "He contributed nothing, you know that. This is just bitterness." I smiled, dark and cold, and screenshot that one too. She was panicking, and panic made people sloppy. Keith called me 10 minutes later. "She just gave us more ammunition. Keep your phone on. Don't respond." I didn't. I just watched the messages stack up, each one digging her deeper. Keith moved fast, and within 2 weeks, the case file was complete. He scheduled a meeting to walk me through everything before filing. We sat in his office again. The documents spread across the desk like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. "Here's what we have," Keith said, tapping each section. "Bank transfers showing you funded the business. Original ownership papers with your name. Emails proving they conspired to remove you. Witness testimony from Monica and Theo. And the forged signature on the dissolution agreement." He looked up at me, his expression serious. "This is one of the cleanest fraud cases I've seen. If we go to court, you're going to win." I nodded, my throat tight. "When do we file?" "Tomorrow," Keith said. "Once this is submitted, there's no going back. Are you ready?" I looked down at the papers, at the years of betrayal laid out in black and white. Then I looked back at him. "File it." The lawsuit was filed on a Monday morning. Vivian Hayes and Patricia Hayes were formally notified of legal action for fraud, forgery, and asset theft. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. Then on Wednesday night, my phone rang. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring, then listened to the voicemail she left. Her voice was shrill, shaking with anger. "You have no right to do this. You're a pathetic, bitter man who can't accept that she's successful and you're not. Drop this now." I saved the voicemail and sent it to Keith. Then I blocked her number. But Vivian tried next. She called from a different number, and when I answered, her voice was different, softer, almost pleading. "Please," she said, "can we just talk about this like adults?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just said, calm and steady, "See you in court." Then I hung up. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, plain and cold, with fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Keith beside me, his briefcase open, documents stacked neatly. Across the room, Vivian sat with her lawyer, her face tight, her hands folded in her lap. Patricia sat behind her, glaring at me like I was something she wanted to erase. The judge entered and the room stood. When we sat back down, Keith began presenting the evidence, document by document, statement by statement. The bank transfers, the original business filings, the emails, the forged signature, testimony from Monica, testimony from Theo. Vivian's lawyer tried to argue, but his voice grew weaker with each piece of evidence. At one point, he glanced at Vivian, and I saw panic flicker across his face. Then came the moment that broke everything. Keith presented the emails between Vivian and Patricia, the ones where they discussed removing me quietly, calling me blind, planning the whole thing. Vivian's face went pale. Patricia leaned forward, whispering urgently. Vivian shook her head, and suddenly they were arguing in harsh whispers, blaming each other, fracturing in real time. The judge raised a hand. Enough. The room went silent. "I'm ordering a forensic signature analysis," the judge said, looking directly at Vivian. "We'll reconvene in 2 weeks." The forensic report came back on a Tuesday. Keith called me as soon as he received it, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "The signature was forged," he said. "Not just forged, copied digitally. The expert's report is conclusive." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of it settle over me. What happens now? "Now," Keith said, "we go back to court, and this time the judge is going to rule in your favor." When we returned to the courtroom, the energy was different. Vivian looked smaller, her shoulders hunched, her hands twisting in her lap. Patricia sat stone-faced, her jaw tight. The judge reviewed the forensic report, reading slowly, methodically. Then she looked up, her gaze landing on Vivian. "This is criminal," the judge said, her voice sharp and final. Vivian looked down. Patricia stood up, ready to argue, but the judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Mrs. Hayes. You'll have your chance to speak, but not now." The room was silent, the air thick with something that felt like justice. Before the final ruling, I received a private message from Vivian. No subject line, just a short, desperate text. "I'll give you $200,000 if you drop everything. Please, just let this go." I read it twice, then screenshot it and forwarded it to Keith. His response was immediate. "Don't reply, this is evidence of guilt." But I couldn't help it. I typed back a single line. "You owe me more than money. You owe me the truth." She never replied. When Keith saw the offer, he leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "According to the law, you're entitled to half the company's current value, possibly more given the fraud. That's not $200,000. That's millions." The number didn't feel real, but the principle did. The final hearing came 3 weeks later. The courtroom was packed this time, a few reporters in the back, people I didn't recognize filling the benches. The judge reviewed everything one last time, then delivered the ruling. Based on the evidence presented, I find in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Hayes is legally recognized as the original co-founder of the business. The fraud is confirmed. I am awarding him majority shareholder status and ordering the immediate freeze of defendant's assets pending further review. Vivian's face crumpled. She pressed her hands to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Patricia stood, shouting something I couldn't hear over the pounding in my ears. But I just sat there, calm, steady, feeling the weight of years finally lift. Keith leaned over and whispered, "It's over, you won." I nodded once, stood, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. I didn't give interviews. I didn't post on social media. I just released a single statement through Keith. I didn't pursue this case for revenge. I pursued it because the truth matters. I hope this outcome reminds people that stealing someone's story doesn't make it yours. Part of the settlement went toward funding grants for people, especially men, who'd been financially taken advantage of in relationships. It felt right, like turning something painful into something useful. Months passed. I rebuilt my life slowly, carefully, learning to trust my instincts again. One evening, a friend sent me a screenshot. Vivian had posted something new, a quote on a blank background. "Never steal someone's story, they might take it back." I stared at it for a long moment, then smiled, quiet and knowing. She once told me I'd never be successful, that I lacked ambition, that I'd amount to nothing without her. Turns out, I didn't just pay for her success. I took it back.